if you guys see Don, I don't know if Dan's here, but definitely when you see Don, Adrian, Brad's wife Sarah is not here, so thank Brad. Thank Sarah through Brad when you get a minute. But yeah, thank everybody who put the lunch together. It was amazing. And also, I want to help me thank Chelsea, Jackie, and Mary Beth for just crushing it this morning. And in the sake of full transparency, I hope you were here and present for the third step talk because I did not press record. So there will not be a copy. So you had to be present and it's got to be banked in the memory. I apologize. That's why we need a bunch of people to do things like these because me by myself can't handle more than like one or two things. But ask Chelsea about that. She'll tell you. But with that, we want to say thank you guys for coming back after lunch. This is usually, I'm sure, a little difficult because everybody's a little full. You might get a little bit tired. This is a long day. But we want to express from the group, from the bottom of our heart, thank you for your willingness to stick this out with us. Our experience has always been like at the end of the day, there's just something that happens no matter how tired you are, that happens within you that usually translates to some really cool stuff when you leave here. So thank you guys for sticking it out with us. And we're just going to take a moment to get quiet and we'll start off with the Serenity Prayer. God, grant us the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, the courage to change the things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. God's will and ours be done. All right, thank you. And I've asked a friend to come up and please read a little something before we get started.
Tim, alcoholic. Steps 4 and 5, how it works, page 63 to 64, and into action, page 72. Next, we launched out on a course of vigorous action, the first step of which is a personal house clean, which many of us had never attempted. Though our decision was a vital and crucial step, it could have little permanent effect unless at once followed by a strenuous effort to face and be rid of the things in ourselves which have been blocking us. Our liquor was but a symptom, so we had to get down to causes and conditions. Having made our personal inventory, what should we do about it? We have been trying to gain a new attitude, a new relationship with our Creator, and to discover the obstacles in our path. We have admitted certain defects. We have ascertained in a rough way what the trouble is. We have put our finger on the weak items in our personal inventory. Now these are about to be cast out. This requires action on our part, which, when completed, will mean that we have admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our defects. Thanks for letting me read.
Thank you, Tim. All right, guys, and please help me welcome our speaker on steps 4 and 5, Thierry F. from Yonkers, New York.
Hey, everyone, can you guys hear me all right? My name is Terry. I'm an alcoholic. It's an honor and privilege to be here. Teddy, thank you for inviting me here. And my sobriety date's June 1st, 2019, and a miracle happened on that day. And I guess the best way I could describe that miracle is that the gift of desperation screamed louder than the craving that was beyond my mental control. I didn't quit drinking. I was separated from drinking. It's kind of like going into a bar and you see a bar fight and the bouncer comes and separates them. That's exactly what happened to me. And I have a home group. The home group's called Lit From Within. I started with Donna Jay and I, and we meet every quarterly, every 3 months. And Shannon just spoke in December for us, and we have our meeting next week. Some wonderful speakers. Allie H. is coming with us. Sharon S. is coming. Beth from New Jersey. So if you guys want any details on that, it's on Zoom. You guys could Zoom on in. I'd also like to thank my wife for allowing me to be here. She's the decision maker in my speaking commitments, and there's a reason for that. There's 2 reasons, actually. One, I fell in love with my own voice. So there's a phenomenon that actually happens here, and the best way I can describe the phenomenon is that your ego becomes extremely spiritual really fast. Like really, really fast. I mean, you guys ever hear like your disease is outside doing push-ups? It's cute, right? It's a nice little saying, but my experience is my disease is in the other room taking acting classes, like looking to make a comeback, and it came back in a different face, like the Mr. AA speaker, or even the AA sponsor. Anyone get angry at their sponsees for not doing the work? Yeah, right? I mean, I'll tell you, I had a powerful spiritual experience on column 1 of the inventory process. And I was so pissy that my sponsees were not doing the work, right? And I was disturbed. I was just disturbed all the time. And there was a reason, because I was disturbable. And when I wrote down, I said, my M-Y, capital M, capital Y, sponsees. And it hit me right in that moment that these people don't belong to me, right? I'm just a fellow traveler with these individuals. Even it says in chapter 7, working with others, when we approach an individual, they're a prospect, then a candidate, then a protege. Protege is just someone that's very special to you. Then we become friends. And that's how I view the people that I work with. We are friends. It's not a hierarchy, me sitting on or standing on a spiritual mountain saying hallelujah. No, they're walking hand in hand, shoulder to shoulder together. And they become my sponsor. I have a friend that says that thank God we're all not crazy on the same day, and that's so true. And they become my sponsor. And I do have a sponsor, and I have other spiritual mentors all over the country, all over the world, and thank God for them, And they pointed out that I had an imbalance in my family. That's the second reason. I was just talking to someone about that. And I missed that word balance in the family afterwards. I neglected my family because I was drunk in spirituality. That's what happened to me. And thank God I do neither of those two things today, and that's the reason why I'm here. My wife said it's okay. So thank my wife if you ever see her. I drank because I loved the effect that was produced by alcohol. I really did. I went to 4 rehabs in high school. I wasn't, mandated. I was more like mom dated to these rehabs. Right? And when I got out, I didn't want to stop. It says in the doctor's opinion, men and women drink essentially because they like the effect produced by alcohol. And I think the only word that I would like to change in the big book is the word like. I would like to put love, right? Like my man over here knows the deal. Like I love the effect produced by alcohol. And I loved it so much, I didn't want to stop. I did not want to stop. And, I didn't understand what was medically and physically wrong with me. I didn't understand that I was in jail. And the first step of getting out of jail is literally knowing that you're in jail in the first place. And I didn't understand that when I took a drink, the drink took me. I remember I just get thirstier every time I took a drink. I took a drink 7 hours prior to a wedding. I ended up in a different state. I didn't understand that. I didn't understand that I could not stop when I put something inside of me, right? But that's academic. It's important to know that stuff. But that main problem that I couldn't understand for a very long time was that the main problem in me centers right here in my mind. And then understand that I could not stay stopped. I remember I got a DUI in New York City, spent 3 days in central booking, X, Y, and Z. And then, you know what I said? I'm done. Right, Teddy? I said, I'm done. I'm done driving. I'm not done drinking. I remember I was throwing up every single morning, and I was drinking Gatorade at that time. I don't know why. I went on a Gatorade binge, too, with alcohol. And I was throwing up every single morning. I remember looking up from the toilet, and I see the Gatorade bottle. I'm like, that's it. It's the Gatorade. I'm done with the Gatorade. In 2018, I had open heart surgery. I had 5 bypass open heart surgery. They put a balloon pump in me to keep me alive. It was because I was drinking and using the White Witch. You guys could put 2 and 2 together for that one, right? And I took me to limits where I was sober for 2 months because of that. I stayed sober because of fear. I'm going to throw this out there. Anyone who, counting days, anyone who's got time, who cares? Fear is an unreliable higher power. It really is. It kept me sober for quite a long time, and it was 2 months. That was a long time for someone like me. And I was cleaning out my trunk. I see my golf bag, and I see a flask, and I'm like, whoa, there she is, the love of my life. And I picked up that booze and off to the races. And I get a call from my wife, who was about a year later. She was in the hospital. She had blood clots in her lungs. And her father died at the age of 50 of blood clots, and her sister died at the age of 30 of blood clots. And you would expect a husband to be by her side holding her hand. I got trashed. I don't know what happened. All I know is that I came to a few days later, according to her, 5 days later. I don't know. I can't clarify that. But I came to, and she was home. And I'm like, what happened? She told me this when I had 3 years sober, and I never knew that I said this because I blacked out. But she said when she called me and then I picked up the phone, I told her I could care less if she lived or died. That was me, a tornado roaring through the lives of other people, right? Victims. I was someone who was an unlovely creature to be around, but I didn't know it. I didn't know it. So I'm seeing my wife there, and I'm like, I got a problem. And thank God for alcohol. It beat the poop out of me to the point where I actually went to a meeting voluntarily, not mom dated, right? And I start to hear my story. And that's what we are here. We're storytellers. And I started to hear my story, and I started to see oh, that's me. That miracle of identification. That's me, that's me, that's me. And I started going to AA, but, I was approached by people who you could say were armed with opinions, and I don't blame them. They were approached by people with armed with opinions and so on and so forth. These are people that cannot or will not completely give themselves to the simple program. That was me. I was just talking about it with some gentleman. I have what is called ADD, alcoholic defiance disorder. I literally have defied every single part of this program. I have a friend said, I work the steps at the pace of pain. That's exactly my experience with the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, right? And I would go to meetings drunk. I'll go to meetings drinking before, after, it didn't matter. I kept going because I kept hearing my story. I don't know, it sounds cheesy, but that's what I was doing. And at that point, I was 100% hopeless. I needed some type of divine intervention, some type of divine help, you could say. And Don Pritz would say it. I was walking around in a body that won't die and carrying a mind that won't work, and I'm still breathing. That was my experience. I was like a walking dead. But I kept going to meetings, so I felt some type of hope. And I bumped into this kid, and I was dropping off my golf clubs at this kid's house, and I get out of the car. He was 22 years old. He had his shirt off. He had the same open heart surgery scar I did. I get out. He's in AA. I'm in AA. He was drunk. I was on my way to the liquor store. I thought I was the youngest person ever had open heart surgery and drink afterwards. There was a kid, 22 years old, had 14 strokes before his open heart surgery. And I was like, I'm not alone. I'm not alone. And I remember I was sitting at Subway, and I remember I paid for half a, you guys say a hoagie, right? I said wedge. Half a wedge at Subway, and I paid with the change and whatever was in my car, and all of a sudden this song comes on. It came from a movie where I had a heart attack, and I had the heart attack in a movie theater where my wife and I were watching this movie called The Greatest Showman, and the song came on was Million Dreams. And I just started crying. And I said, okay, I'll go to rehab. I can't really explain the situation, but God just keeps sending messages and messengers all the time. It's just the receiver was blocked. Sometimes I'm way too smart to know that I'm having a spiritual experience. I can't see it unless, like I was just saying, unless we look back, right? I don't see this stuff until it happens to me when I look back at it. And I went into rehab in Brooklyn, New York, and they asked me to go to this place in Minnesota called The Retreat, and it's a 12-step fellowship, and there was only 4 people on staff there, and I didn't know who worked there, who didn't. It was just everybody who was there was doing 12-step work. And I'm so used to the white coats, where the white coats at? Where's the clinical side of this stuff, right? And I go over there, and this was the first time I was introduced to the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And guys, I did not want to open up the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. You know why? Because I thought that shit was too big. I thought it was way too big. I'm like, I'm not reading that thing. But then all of a sudden, I opened it up, and it became a book of mirrors. I'm literally looking at myself in a book that was written in 1939, right? And then I started to learn about the real alcoholic, how I'm not different from other people, I'm different from other drinkers. I'm different from that moderate drinker to take half a shot and walk away. Yeah, come on, bro, give that to me. That's not me. I'm different from the hard drinker. I literally had a doctor tell me straight up to my face, you will die if you ever drink again. And there I was, all lit up again. That did not stop me. But what about that real alcoholic? That was one of the pages in the book that I literally saw myself. That's why we tell stories here, right? That depth, that pull that we talk about, right? And then I went to this part of the We Agnostics. I was with my sponsor at this time, and it was this, God is everything or else he's nothing. That was the line. And he asked me this question, and he said, Terry, can you explain God? And I met one person, I've asked this question a bunch of times, randomly to a bunch of people, and I said, hell fucking yeah, I can. That's what I said. And I start to name everything. God is love, God is godly direction, God is the great outdoors, God is this, God is that, God is dot, 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 dot. I got tongue-tied. And my sponsor looks over, he's like, it's pretty hard to explain everything. He's like, because God is everything, and everything's God, and you're not God. And right then and there, I was rocketed right into the fourth dimension of existence I couldn't even dream. See, God can't be explained, but he could be experienced. Straight up. He could be experienced. Right? It's like, how do I know it? It's like, what does a rose smell like? It smells like a rose. Or what does a Coca-Cola taste like? It tastes like Coca-Cola. I can't explain God. I could only experience it. When I got out of rehab, guys, I had nothing. I had nothing. What was my choice to be? Is God everything or else he's nothing? God is everything. Let's rock and roll. Let's rock and roll. And I got to the point of the fourth step with my sponsor, and thank you, Mary Beth, for that third step. That decision. And we said the third step prayer. And the third step prayer says to build with me and to do with me as thou wilt. And that key word is with. That means there's participation from me. See, I didn't understand that's how a relationship is supposed to operate. I do the work, God works on me. That's been my experience with the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. And when I got my instructions on how to do the fourth step, it literally took me 2 weeks to knock it out in 45 minutes. 2 weeks to draw the lines. I even used my big book to draw those lines. I can actually replicate that line if you want me to. And I looked at those pretty lines, and they were pretty. They were like super pretty. And I didn't write anything. No, God, no. And all of a sudden, I had that thought about drinking again. Good old alcohol, good old ass whooping. I'm scared to drink again. Okay, boom. I just started knocking it out. It took me 2 weeks to draw the lines and then 45 minutes to knock it out. I had 30 plus resentments. I had about 20 fears. I had, I think, like 10 or 15 relationship. And I knocked it out. And I literally go into my fifth step, knocking it out an hour before the fifth step. Literally going into the fifth step, knocking it out. And I told you my experience with column 1, but I want to tell you my experience with column 2. And the column 2 is the cause. And I'm looking at these causes and conditions. And the whole point of this fourth step is I think we were just talking about, is making that decision, putting legs and feet onto our third step in writing. You guys ever heard of the 3 red-tailed hawks on the fence? Shannon, I know you heard it before. No. You guys ever heard it? No, I just made it up, so you guys aren't supposed to. So I was getting really tired of the 3 frogs on a log thing, so I just came up with this. So you got 3 red-tailed hawks on a fence, and 2 make a decision to launch. I like that word, launch. Launch out into the sky. How many hawks actually launched into the sky? Yeah, none of them. Because they all made a decision, but they didn't do anything. See, my experience with playing God is when I make a decision not to write inventory, I make a decision not to tell someone in the fifth step, I make a decision not to let go of anything that's objectionable in life, if I make a decision not to let God take it away from me, make a decision not to write an eighth step, make a decision not to approach individuals and knock on doors, make a decision not to practice watch, ask, discuss, turn, thy will is being done, show me the way, not doing that, not helping people, I'm making a decision that I'm God. That I'm the Alpha, I'm the Omega, and I'm the beginning and the all. But I had pain that was forcing me to write this inventory. I was scared poopless to ever drink again. I can't teach step 1 to anyone. Your experience and your experience alone. Today, I don't stay here because of the gift of desperation. I stay here because of inspiration. Straight up. I get inspiration by listening to people, by just random. I had someone call me up 3 days ago asking me to sponsor them, and literally he has X amount of years more than me, and I love listening to him. And who could make this stuff up? The people I work with are just divine distractions from my head up here, because I got a talker. I have a talker up here. So that decision. So that fourth step, when I looked at column 2, what I ultimately looked at was I literally looked at my judgments of other people. I looked at judging you, and here's my experience with judging. Whenever I'm judging you, I think I'm right. And whenever I think I'm right, I'm playing God. My experience is that playing God just does not work. Sometimes it does work for a long time, and then all of a sudden it really doesn't work, and I become disturbed. The whole point of what we do here is to become undisturbed. I'll give you my experience. I was judging people, let's just say the twofold, threefold disease thing. You guys ever hear that before? And I was judging the one side. I was like, oh, that's not true. The big book doesn't say that. It says not only we've been spiritually, we've been mentally or physically ill. It says it right there. But then all of a sudden I look at the other side like, yeah, God, I could agree with God never gets sick. Right? I can understand that. We suffer from a mental disease. I can understand that. But here is the problem. Both are right and both are wrong. Both are right because of both situations that I explained. But both are wrong is because I'm judging them and they're judging me. So when I'm in a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous and I hear someone say that word, what happens? I go into a little story land, little la-la land, a little talker, a minion. My friend Beth would say, a scary movie, right? I have a talker up here that's very loud. I talked about that ego becoming extremely spiritually fat. It does, in very different ways. And I'm this big book guy. They have to do that. Is all BS. That's just a different phase my mind took over. That thing had to die. And Mary Beth said it in the sentence, we are going to be reborn. What does that mean? That means something's got to die. And I'll tell you right now, that alcoholic ego will fight for its freaking life during this process. It will. And then I looked at that column 3, that parts of the 7 areas of self, where all these expectations I have of other people, my belief systems, my old ideas are constantly being hurt and threatened and interfered with. But I really had a big problem with going from the 3rd column to that 4th column. I'm really good at going to a therapist and saying, yeah, I hate that guy. And here's why. And here how it hurts me. And then I pay that person X amount of money, and that's it. See, I'm being dominated. And I don't know that I'm being dominated. Right? And the book is pretty fascinating. It asks us to look at it through an entirely different angle. And that didn't make sense to me until I heard Peter M. talk about it. He talked about being stuck in traffic. And say that I'm stuck in traffic, I'm on the turnpike, hypothetically, and, I'm pissed off because I'm about to be late to work. I got to be at work. Yesterday I was late to work. I can't be late 2 days in a row, right? And all of a sudden, I'm pissed off. I'm disturbed, right? But I see Channel 7 News, helicopter, and they're flying by. They have a different angle on what's happening in front of me. Now, all I have to do is just literally tune in. All right, what's happening over there? And I can find out there's a 10-car pileup, a couple people passed away, X, Y, and Z. I would have a completely different attitude about being late to work. And that's what I was asked to do. I was asked to look at perhaps these people are spiritually sick, but the most importantly, like me too. See, I didn't get that. I in the beginning of recovery, I looked down at people. I'm like, yeah, they're just spiritually sick. They don't know what the hell they're talking about. Right? That's what my mind will do. It'll put myself above you and look down at you. That's not the point. Thank God I had good sponsorship, and I had to the point where I wrote inventory on my wife, and let's just say she took $50K from me. She hit me, and she left me. And my sponsor, I don't know, maybe he was like Baby Yoda, or I don't know, maybe just has years of experience deciphering this stuff down, but this is what he did with me. And he said, well, Terry, have you ever stolen money from her? And I was like, yeah, I actually stole like $10K from the wedding. And she's like, well, it sounds like you're mad at her for the same thing that you're mad at her about, right? Like ourselves, they are sick too. See, the same pain that drives her drives you too. And I was like, okay, well, she hit me. Well, I would never hit a woman. That's off limits. And my sponsor's like, well, Terry, ever been tempted to hit your wife? I'm like, fuck yeah, I want to beat her up. And I was like, well, Terry, then like ourselves, they are sick too. See, the same pain that drives them drives you too. And it clicked. And then some things were trauma related as well. And my sponsor, another baby Yoda motion, he's like, well, Terry, this person, you suffer from an obsession that's beyond your control when it comes to alcohol. I'm like, yeah. You think that person also suffered an obsession beyond their control when it comes towards beating you? And I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. See, I don't understand that what other people say, do, and think, it's not my business. My problem is my mind will make it. So, and I'll be dominated by what other people think, and what other people say, and what other people do. Today, I no longer have that experience. Sometimes I get chipped away at some other people, but how fast can I get back to the center is the key of what I try to live today. The practice of the 10th step. How fast can I get back to now? But I finally was able to look at me now. Look at my mistakes. Where I was wrong. And where was I to blame? And my sponsor did a wonderful job explaining it to me, that these mistakes, Terry, they're just invitations to lessons learned. Like, we make mistakes all the time. I make a mistake by judging people. I make a mistake by thinking about what I want to share about before I came up here. I make mistakes all the time. But they're just invitations to me to learn from if I'm becoming aware of them in that moment. Because they're going to crop up again. That's been my experience. And I looked at my selfishness, I looked at my self-centeredness, I looked at how I was being really kind and generous to people and self-sacrificing to people. I mean, anyone open up the door for someone and they walk by and they don't say thank you? They're like, yo, where's my effing thank you at, right? Or my thank you wave for letting people in. I didn't understand that being kind but also trying to get my way is also a form of playing God. See, I was looking at my patterns of selfishness and my self-centeredness. That's what the resentment inventory is about. And today whenever I get really disturbed, you could say, in the beginning recovery it was pretty prevalent, but now not as so much. But whenever I get disturbed, some things get tattooed to your soul, and one of them was page 66, or, if you're angry, it has the power to kill you. Or when you're angry, you're being dominated, or when you have an anger, you have you grow that resentment, you let it grow, you like to nurture resentments. I mean, I like to play resentments in my head like ESPN, like da-na-na, da-na-na, and I'm like going on and on and on. And then I change it. I literally change the story so much in my head in different scenarios, and I can't even sleep sometimes when I'm angry. You see, it says resentment has the power to destroy us. It really does. Not alcohol, resentment. I mean, my mind doesn't think drink solution, drink answer now. When I'm really pissed off, it'll think suicide solution, suicide answer. That's how my mind will go. And I have a friend said, whenever I had those suicidal thoughts, Terry, that's just you're trying to kill the wrong self. That's what he would tell me. And that made sense to me, because that's the talker in my mind. I am not my mind. I am not that talker, right? I am a child of God, and I understand what the purpose of the 4-step is, to face and to be rid of the things that are blocking me off from God. I was reading step 1 in the 12 and 12 last night with a couple of guys, and we were looking at the religious dudes, right? Another form of agnosticism, right? Someone who is extremely religious. What the hell you got to teach me about God, right? I pray more than you do in one day, and I'll do in my entire life. What do you have to teach me? That's another form of agnosticism. What do you have to teach me? And literally in step 1 in the 12 and 12, it says they never really cleaned house. And that's what we're doing here. We got all this nuclear waste around. It's like a little backpack that you kind of walk around with it, right? But if we feel heavy all the time, and the whole purpose is just to look at it and get rid of it. Be rid of it. And then I looked at the fears, and it's like an onion, you kind of peel it back, and you find that all your resentments are just manifestations from fear, right? And that fear is just an evil and corroding thread. I had 25 fears on my, or 20, whatever. I should have had another 80 to go. I was just scared all the time. If you saw me in the beginning of recovery, like I looked like I had panic disorder. I was scratching my face off. I was on all sorts of pills as well, like everything. Because long story short, like I was just suffering from a story that was in my head. And it says fear should be classed with stealing. This book was not written for kleptomaniacs. It's written for alcoholics. A kleptomaniac has lost the power to choose whether they're steal or not. I know damn well when I'm in fear, I'm making a conscious decision to rely on this up here instead of God. And when I go, because it's normal, it's through my old personality, it's that way of life. See, that personality change does not really happen overnight. It can happen for some people, but for me, it was sudden and profound many times. Boom, 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 boom. And looking at that fear, I was going through it with my sponsor, and he got me to look at all these fears and what ways I try to manage these fears. And he had, again, another baby Yoda kind of thing. He would say, all those ways that you try to manage that fear, Terry, why do you still have it? I was like, I don't know. Well, self-reliance failed you. Look at Jim's story. If you look at Jimmy's story is fun. He had a resentment. What's behind that resentment was fear, and what was behind that was self-reliance. The great I's, the great MY's, the great ME's, the great for me. I could give you an actual experience. Anyone say this? I don't feel like going to a meeting today. Anyone say that? Okay, well, everyone's a saint here. Okay, fine. I don't feel like calling my sponsor. Come on. I don't feel like reading with a new guy. I don't feel like going there. I don't feel like being nice to my boss. He's a bad, about to say a bad word, but he's that type of person. I don't want to be kind and loving towards this person. What's up with my bank account? What's up with that? You see, that's the talker that's in my head. And when I'm doing that, talking in the I's and talking in the MY's and all that stuff, what's going to happen is I'm being so selfish, so self-consumed, just like Mary Beth said. I don't think too likely of myself. I don't think too low of myself, but all I do is think about myself. What's going to happen is I'm going to have an insane thought come in there. Because my step one experience tells me I will have insane thoughts. Normal people don't dream about getting drunk and then feel guilty the next day about it. Normal people don't have fantasies about getting drunk or have whispered a minion that's in their head about drinking, even though you've been to 6 rehabs, open heart surgery. Normal people don't suffer from that. If I'm so selfish and I'm so self-consumed myself, I'll have an insane thought, and there is no God. You see, if you look at Jimmy's story, Fred's story, even the carpet slipper dude, they all had an insane idea, and they all took action on that insane idea. And in between that insane idea and that action to go drunk is a very small space, but occupies a very large God. And what we're doing is we're building a relationship with the now, which will separate us, just like that bar fight, which will separate me from taking a drink. And that's what I'm doing here, is getting rid of that gunk and no longer listening to that story that's in my head, right? And I'm a great listener to it. My wife tells me I don't listen to her. She's right, and she's also wrong. She's wrong because she's wrong because I'm listening to a story in my head. Like you could have literally Mark Houston or Joe H. or Clancy and all these people come up here, but you're thinking about what you want to share about after they're done talking. You ain't listening to the word they're saying. That's been my experience. Anyone think about that? Oh, I can't wait to share about what they're going to, after the guy's talking. That's a bondage self. You see, I have a friend in California. He said, you're not really identifying with me. You're identifying with the condition that drives me. See, I'm driven by that. But I don't know about it because, like Mark would say, I'm walking around asleep, dreaming I'm awake. Now, I'm awake today. Thank God I'm awake today, and thank God I can see it. Sometimes I don't. That's why we have people in our lives. That's why we have the fellowship in our lives. I just started this the other day. Well, not the other day, about 8 months ago to a year, where the people that I work with, not so decent, not so soon, but the people I work with, we go to a meeting, we get 2 people's phone numbers, and we call them twice a day for the next 3 days, and check in on to see how they're doing. And all of a sudden, if you're brand new, it's scary. I couldn't even look at you in the eye when I came in here. Right now, I don't even have fear about speaking today. I spoke at a conference with Bill H. and Valdez. There was 400 people there. It was awesome. And then next week, I'm in New York City talking in front of 100 people, and I was scared poopless. And this was going on in my mind, that fear. What are they going to think about me? Oh, what are you going to talk? Don't talk too much about God. What are they going to? You can't say that. Or don't be too light on the God. You want to prove all this little story in my head, and I'm listening to it. I'm entertaining it, right? And I look over my friend. And that's the wonderful thing about discussing. We're going to talk about the fifth step and practicing the 10th step with your fifth step is to discuss it with someone else. Because sometimes someone else is a conduit, an agent, and a messenger of God. I have a friend that says like, if you think God is your sponsor, then God has a fool for a sponsee, right? I need people in my life who are conduits. And I look over at my friend Phoebe, and I was like, hey, Phoebe, I'm really scared. Oh, well, what to talk about? She's like, why? Everybody's just thinking about themselves right now. And I was like, but that's what I was doing. That's what I was doing in that very moment. I was deaf ears because I was listening to the story that was in my head. And when I write that down, I'm looking at that. You see, when you write inventory, you're not writing about who you are. You're writing who you are not. And you get rid of that person, your true, authentic self will burst out of you, just like it did when I went through this process. Right? And that fear prayer, I think the fear prayer is one of them. You see, when you guys ever take a drink, you become the drink, right? Well, my experience is when I do a sincere prayer, I become the prayer. I become a demonstration of the words that are in this book. I no longer study the book. Sometimes I pick up some things, but I try to live that are words that are in this book, and I try to live that fear prayer. God, please remove my fear and direct my attention to what you have me be. I'll give you an experience. I had a job interview, and I thought it went well, and they didn't call me back. It was 2 days. I go, where's my phone call at? Right? Anyone go to an interview and they don't call you? Like, yo, where's my call? And I'm driving, and I'm thinking about why this person hasn't called me. What's going on? I can't stand them. How am I going to slash their tires if I find out who they are, right? X, Y, and Z. And all of a sudden, I'm practicing that 10-step, practicing ask that day. And I use the fear prayer. See, that's why we pause when agitated or doubtful. The grace of God will come in that pause, and you'll have an intuitive thought. And what happened with me, I said, I had the fear prayer, and I said, God, please remove my fear and direct my attention to what you would have me be. And you know what I said? Be a driver, because I was literally swerving. Yo, I was in fantasy land, swerving around because I'm listening to the story that's in my head. See, if I listen to that minion long enough, I'm going to believe it's real. And I'll have an agnostic temperament where I'm like, yeah, I believe there's a God in my life, but it won't work for me. So this is what I'm going to do with this job interview. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go play God. I'm going to have a script for everybody in my life, but I won't send them the script. And they go off script, I'm going to get pissy all the time. And what will happen is I'll think drink solution, drink answer if I'm disturbed enough. The conduct inventory, the sex inventory was, we're looking at how our selfishness acts out. That didn't make sense to me until someone explained it. They said, well, Terry, if you're an insane person, you get put into an insane asylum because you act insane. That makes sense? I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. Well, when you get let go from this insane asylum, it's because you act sane. Now, what I'm doing is I'm looking at how my selfishness acts out in my conduct in relationships. And, oh my God, this has changed my world. When I use the 9 questions and look at where was I selfish, dishonest, and the key word is inconsiderate. When I looked at my inconsideration and my patterns in relationships, you know what I would do that I had no idea I was doing? It was I would text people, hey, what time are we meeting here? And I wouldn't even say, hi, how are you? I learned that from doing the sex conduct inventory. See, I didn't understand that I was acting out on my selfishness. And all this stuff I was looking at, yet again, it wasn't me. And I wrote it down, and you guys are going to love this. I took a one-way ticket out to Minnesota. Did not plan on coming back to the East Coast. I guess I ended up back here. Right? But I came out there, and I literally tried to hide my sex inventory from my sponsor in the 5th step. I was already 2.5 hours in. I got the point. I'm selfish. I'm self-centered. Blah, blah, blah. And I literally tried hiding it under the other pages. And my sponsor's like, I thought he would have noticed. And he's like, you missing something? And that's what it says in our fifth step. And our fifth step was trying to create a new attitude and a new relationship with our Creator. What is the definition of new? Something I've never experienced before. And what happened in that moment was I was very vulnerable. And I felt really scared to say something that I thought was really scary to say out loud. See, it's not a duet when you do the fifth step. It's a trio. It's you, that other person, and God. And God is dancing between the raindrops when that happens. And that's been my experience. Something magical happened. I don't know. We were just talking about meeting with eyeball to eyeball, physically with other people. Something happens. There's an energy, there's an enthusiasm, there's some type of energy that happens here, and you can't explain it. It's an experiential thing. I mean, look at the definition of the fourth dimension is on Bill's story. It's also on page 25. Also in the fifth step, I was admitted to God, that's spirit, to ourselves, that's my mind, and to what's the other one? To others. Physical, mind, body, spirit, all interlocked together. And the result of that is the fourth dimension, which is a way of life, living right here, right now, from moment to moment to moment to moment. Bill even said it. I was to know usefulness, physical. I was to know happiness, my mind. I was to know, I forgot the other one, whoever knows it. Happiness, or whatever. Mind, body, spirit, all interlocked together. It's a way of life. And that's what I was practicing. I didn't understand that these spiritual principles, what's the point of the steps is to live them. I didn't understand that the whole process was to become aligned with power. And I had to get rid of the things that are blocking me. And I wrote down, I said those things out loud to my sponsor. And I remember afterwards, it's funny, he told me, he'd take like an hour afterwards or whatever. And he says, like, yeah, I'll go somewhere to be quiet for an hour. And I was like, all right, I went for a walk instead, right? There goes the defiance again. Something happened in that moment. I can't really explain it, but I was walking, and I wasn't delighted like it said in the book, and I'm talking to Marty about it. It's more like that light shining in and out of you, but I was lighter. I was traveling light for some reason. It says I could look at the world with perfect peace or ease or whatever it says. For some odd reason, my mind wouldn't shut up in the first 90 days of recovery. I literally was by myself and I was in complete contentment. I couldn't believe it. Like the talker was gone. It died. Something happened in that moment. It died. My fears fell from me. I wasn't walking on eggshells anymore. I was free. It says the drink probably will disappear. I had a spiritual experience, and when I look back at it, for 3 months, the obsession was gone. Problem is, I balked on step 9. That's another story. But here's the deal. A spiritual experience like that had an expiration date. It happened to me. Just like I can't stay sober after the spiritual experience I had yesterday. I have to give nourishment to the soul on a daily basis. I can't stay clean off the shower I took yesterday. I have to constantly give nourishment. And what happens, I stopped doing the work, and I got scared again, and there was a lot of tension, and I almost took my life about a year into sobriety. That's another story. I don't have time to go in there. But I was walking hand in hand with the spirit and universe. It's not a two-ness, it's a oneness. It says, I feel the nearness of my Creator. Why do I feel near to this Creator? Because there's nothing blocking me. Like, I'm just an empty vessel now. A hollow bone. I don't know what happened in that moment. All that nuclear waste that I was carrying around, that shame, that guilt, all that stuff was gone. It's something you can't explain, but you can only experience it. And I've had that experience many times afterwards as well. My experience with living and making a practice of step 4 and step 5 today was pretty rigid. When I met someone, another mentor of mine, who would take the 10-step and really dissect the hell out of it, to the point where I was watching all the time. I was watching for like 3 months, Because when you're watching for the manifestations of self, it does not say we listen to our fears. It says we watch for them, right? And all of a sudden, I'm watching for all these patterns of inconsideration, all these disturbances in my life, all these selfishness when it crops up, or when I'm in fearful. It's because there's selfishness and self-centeredness intact, and I don't know about it. That's why I need to discuss it with another individual immediately. And I found the practice of discussing one of the most profound things in my life, because that's the least favorite thing I like to do. I think I was just talking to a gentleman earlier about this. I treat my loneliness with isolation. That's how I rolled for a long time. I really did, man. I tell you, like I was like that. I was a lone wolf. You know, but when I'm with you, something happens. Something happens. You guys distract me from listening to that story that's in my head. And I just want to say that I'm 1,000% convinced that God has a successful recycling business. He takes trash, he turns it into treasure. He took me, a piece of trash, a tornado roaring through the lives of others, a victim of delusions and illusions, an unlovely creature, and he transformed me. He transformed me. We talked about spiritual experience. You know that word? It says the word change a lot in spiritual experience. My opinion, take it or leave it, I think it means transformation. I mean, look at the Holy Cross. Look at the cross. You know, about X amount of years ago, that was a torture device. That was used for death. Now look at it. It's chilling right there. People wear it around their necks. There's Blue Cross. There's Red Cross. All this. It had a complete change in its identity. A transformation in its identity. God has transformed me into a father of a child who has autism, who is still nonverbal. And I tell you, he is chaos, but I can't live without that chaos anymore. He is my chaos. And I love him with every inch of my heart. I learned so much just from him. He's like my greatest teacher. He's my spiritual mentor, right? I mean, he's walking around free all the time. He's not thinking the drive for success is on. I have arrived. How dark it is before the dawn. He's not thinking any of that stuff, right? Like, he is a constant connection with power. I think about it. That's what we're doing here. We're going back home. We're going back home to the land of milk and honey, back to the fourth dimension, back to right here, right now. And that's where I want to be, living like that with no care in the world. God has transformed me into a husband, into someone who picks up the call and is there at the hospital with my wife today. Multiple times since she's been in the hospital and I've been in, so I've been by her side holding her hand. He has transformed me into a friend. And so someone who shows up to people, who picks up the call. I mean, you guys ever see it? Like, they teach you say yes in the beginning of recovery. You know why? Because I love saying no. People will call me all the time. Like, nope, I'm not free. I don't know, I'm doing something. I'm free. I just don't want, I want to be by myself. Right? But I show up today. Man, I made amends to one of my friends. There's a question where he asked, like, was there any other harms that I've caused you that I should know about or I left out? And he's like, yeah, you said no 273 times to me. I'm like, you counted that? You counted that? This is true. You counted that? And I've only said no to him if it does not make sense. Let's just say that today. That kid gave me a free truck, and I started my own junk removal business with it. I play golf with him on a week. Well, not as much as I used to because of my kid, but he's my best friend. I talk to him about anything. I call him up, he calls me up. That relationship was dead unless I went through this process, right? God has transformed me into someone who's useful. The whole point of the steps is to make you useful and helpful to someone else who is hurting. Because there's someone out there at this very moment that does not like themselves and probably does not want to live anymore. I was one of them. You never know who you're going to meet here. And God has transformed me into that messenger of hope. Where hopefully if you hear something that you relate to or whatever, God bless you. But my experience is, it's not one side. I can't just let God do all the hard work. I got to put participation in as well. I think I'm done. Thank you. My name is Terry. I'm an alcoholic.